There we go. Welcome, everybody, to the November 24th Identifying Security Threats Working Group meeting. I've started to hit record. Any new members? Any folks new to that would like to introduce themselves? This is your opportunity.
All right. I guess I can go. A couple of you people already met me. I'm Lorenzo De Carli. I'm assistant professor of computer science at WPI in Worcester, Massachusetts. Part of my research is security of NPM, PyPI, and similarity systems, and that interest brought me to those meetings and to interact with Mike and David in the past. So yeah, for now, I'm just happy to be here and listen to people's opinion and learn more.
Hi, folks. I can also introduce myself. Can everyone hear me? I'm not sure about using Teams. Cool. I'm Matt Jarvis. I am Director of Developer Relations at Sneak.
Oh, welcome.
My name is Drew Davidson. You can pretty much just cut and paste the line from Lorenzo. I'm also a professor. I'm at the University of Kansas, and we're actually collaborating together on some of the, ecosystem security stuff. So, similarly, really happy to be here and looking forward to collaborating possibly.
Terrific.
Fantastic. We would love collaboration. Now, are you focused more on the understanding the problems or proposing solutions or kind of both? This is really a question for both of you.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say both, although, it's kind of like, to me, you always want to start with understanding the problems before coming up with a solution. So, we have one previous published work, Lorenzo and I, on typos in particular. I think maybe some of you have heard about that work, but, we're continuing on sort of past that. So if there's work on understanding or on defenses, I think, we'd be interested in hearing about both.
Yeah, we came into the space and realized nobody knows anything about the security of those contexts. So, for a few years we've been trying to understand more, and now we hope to move to be more proactively build tools and things like that.
Spectacular. Well, in the open source space, supply chain space, typo squatting is, well, depending on how you count, number 1 or number 2. So we certainly care.
Awesome. Since we have kind of a center of mass of new people, what if we just everybody go around so that way everybody knows everybody. I'm Mike Scavetta. I run an open source security team at Microsoft. I've been leading this work group since the inception, I guess. But yeah, that's me. Dave?
All right, so I'm David A. Wheeler. I work at the Linux Foundation as of was a year and a half ago now. So I've been interested in open source software and security and secure software and the combination for many years. So I've been trying to do a lot of work in this space, hopefully helping, and would love to have. I'm always delighted to see new people join and collaborate and so on. Let's see here. Who didn't speak? Luigi?
Okay. Hi, I am Luigi. I am a security engineer, and I am very interested in the open source security ecosystem. So how we can maintain the open source ecosystem safe. And this is the main reason why I am here.
Dylan?
Yeah, I guess I go. Hey guys, I'm Dylan. I am a software engineer at Microsoft, focused on security stuff, static analysis, stuff like that. And yeah, joined this group to kind of increase my exposure into the open source world. And nice to meet you all.
Welcome.
And Subinoy?
Yeah, hi. So myself, Shubinay Datta, and I'm from Cognizant, India, and I'm new to open source, and I would like to collaborate and contribute to the security stuffs and build tools together.
Cool. Awesome. So yeah, this is probably the center of mass. We had a couple people that usually join, in particular Amir from OSTIF. So I'm hoping he joins, but if not, we'll sync up with him after. So we've got some updates for today, but we can use this as just kind of open discussion. Certainly add more topics. We can go through these, I think, pretty quickly, but just want to give everybody an update on where things were. So Alpha Omega is acting as its starting point. Okay, yeah. Just wondering what
yeah, basically, I was just trying to note for those who are new, eventually Project Alpha Omega is going to be a sibling to this particular working group. But in the past, OpenSSF has always been, a set of working groups with projects inside them. And so in some sense, you're witnessing the birthing of a huge project on its own. But we got to make it all happen.
Yep. So where we stand right now is, we are finalizing the 2022 operating plan, which is kind of a prereq to do a press release. I'm hoping the press release happens that's near the top of my list as we want to go out as soon as possible, but no sooner. One of the long poles there is solidifying and getting formal approval to hire the initial set of folks. It looks like it will probably be a 2 product managers or product owners or whatever you want to call them. One for Alpha, one for Omega, and then at least 1 project manager, and then a couple engineers to work on Omega. So I think we landed on. Oh, David's gone. I think we landed on 5 as the initial hire set.
I'm not gone. I was just getting a soda.
Okay.
Proof.
Cool. So hoping to land that now that the holidays are here. I'm hoping to land that in 1st to 2nd week in December. If I can get something out by the end of the calendar year, that would be absolutely awesome.
If I can jump in for our new folks,
Absolutely.
Alpha is focusing on on a small set of critical projects, really focusing in. Omega is looking broad, and what can we do to be helpful to a broad set of projects?
Yes, there were links down in. I forget it. I'll just add the link again.
Okay. Yeah. While you add a link, the critical projects working group will own the list. I don't know if you're aware of this, Michael, but over in the best practices working group, we had a little bit of a surprise that, at least initially unwelcome, but it's okay. I think we can work this. The Great MFA project is supposed to be distributing tokens.
Yes.
We just found out that Google's coupon codes expire at the end of the year.
I heard about that. It's like a Family Guy thing where expired coupons that just always stuck in my memory. It's like
I don't, I was just gonna say, hey, can we extend it? But apparently they were already extended once, and we weren't aware of the time frame. So okay, doesn't matter. What can we do now? So I have begged the critical projects working group to come up with a draft by December 2nd.
Okay.
Don't assume that list, it has to be the final one for Alpha, but we're basically pressing them to have something to work with soon. And then obviously you can refine and improve and that sort of stuff.
Yes, there's a meeting happening on the 6th that having such a list, even if it were very draft and subject to change, would be very good for me to have in my back pocket. So
right.
Cool.
I can point you actually to the draft. You can see
I'd love that
sausage. I will find you the sausage so you can watch it while it's being made. Basically, they have a list. It's about 130. I think some are gonna. Some, in fact, I know have already dropped. But basically, they've gathered data from lots of different sources here, and the top ones from each merge together, and then have the working group walk through and say yay, nay, that sort of stuff.
Perfect. Cool. So we'll just say tentatively.
Yeah, so carry on, and I will hunt up the link.
A list will be on around December 2.
I'm hoping it's not tentative.
Yeah. So that's alpha. For omega, I want to kind of announce as much as it is. Will be so. Part of what my team does is do kind of proof of concept tooling. So we're going to open source, or actually just contribute to OpenSSF.
Mike, sorry to interrupt. There seems to be a lot of background noise coming from somewhere. I have a hard time making like what you're saying.
Tell you what, I'm going to mute everybody and then come off mute if you want to talk. Cool. Thanks for that. So for Omega, purpose of Omega is scan the entire open source ecosystem at scale with the very best tools, and then triage the results and report vulnerabilities. So it is not to juxtapose this with a lot of other things. It's not about does a thing use have a known vulnerability or is using a known to be vulnerable dependency, but this is code level scanning and fuzzing and whatnot to see for new vulnerabilities. Does this thing have patterns that match a thing? So as part of this, we're going to we're going to donate to OpenSSF a project that we use internally for this. So the project itself is really two things. One is a container image that has pretty much every security tool we can think of pre-installed. This is called Toolshed. So it's got things including CodeQL, SemGrep. I mean, you can see the list there, but it kind of goes through, and depending on what kind of project it is, it will download it, pre-process it, run each of the tools, normalize the results, and then leave those in a directory, basically. And then batch infrastructure to basically drain a queue and just keep the images running. So each image is ephemeral, so it goes away at the end of the scan. And the batch infrastructure, handles all the scaling and stuff. So we'll release, we'll get both of those out and available in, the plan is December. I have to have one of the devs on my team kind of do that, like getting it ready for, to be shared. But then at that point, then it's OpenSSFs, and the engineers that we hire will do the care and feeding. And if they don't like it and they want to rebuild it and redo it, that's great too. I just wanted to seed the effort as best we can, and not start purely from the ground. We've used this to scan 15 or 20,000 projects pretty successfully. The biggest limiter now is that the team size, we don't have folks to triage at scale. And whatever problem we solve for Microsoft isn't, we would rather solve it for the industry. So,
question for you.
Yeah.
I added a text because I think it's correct, but that doesn't make it correct. You're talking about unrestricted capacity for scanning open source software, right?
For this one right here?
For the CodeQL, yes.
Yes.
I added the last text.
Yes. Yes.
That was my understanding.
Yes, absolutely. So basically, the default CodeQL license I think it allows you to only scan projects that are hosted on GitHub. And because we are looking at, let's say, the package on NPM or PyPy or wherever else, I can't guarantee that it'll be on GitHub. So it could be on Bitbucket or something. And so the commercial license for CodeQL allows you to scan anything you want. What we have is we have a license that basically says you can run it on any open source wherever you find it, like period. So technically it's a commercial license agreement. It was kindly donated or given to us by GitHub.
So can I ask a quick question in
Absolutely.
this context? I mean,
Yeah.
would access to Sneak in this capacity be something that would be of interest?
Yes. Well, so access to more data is always of interest. The question is where does it plug into the process? So knowing that when we scan, if we take NPM, I don't know, a new version of NPM Express comes out today, and we scan it. What we're looking for is to be able to answer: are there critical vulnerabilities in Express? Are there has it been, backdoored? Other kind of egregious things.
Yeah,
so
Mike, I think your answer to your question is many words too long. The correct answer is yes.
Okay.
Sorry, I do want to be careful because in talking with LFX security, in talking with their usage and their kind of model is to be able to look at an existing thing of Express and saying, oh, this thing already has known vulnerabilities, and Sneak and other kind of data sources provide that. Looking for new vulnerabilities is usually a different conversation, but again, having more data is always good. So yes, but I just want to be clear on the
if I can paraphrase what you're saying there, is that on the one hand, you're interested in semantic analysis of code in order to detect new vulnerabilities which are not currently CVEs.
Correct.
Right. Okay. So I mean, there's obviously multiple parts to what Sneak provides, and I mean, clearly in the LFX security perspective, we're talking about package dependency analysis, composition analysis in terms of this dependency that you're using has X CVEs against it, which is one part of what we do.
Right.
But there's also the Sneak code analysis stuff, which may be interesting as well. But I mean, either way, clearly, the reason I'm here is that part of what we do at Sneak is supporting open source projects anyway, and it's something we want to grow as an organization. So
let's absolutely have those deeper dive conversations, because
I think the answer should be yes. We're interested. The detail, you obviously are already aware that LFX includes Sneak, and clearly, it seems to me that all works together. Finding the vulnerabilities that nobody knows about right now is clearly important, but finding about them, fixing them, but not getting them through the supply chains and the various tiers, doesn't really, I mean, it just means that the fixed vulnerability stays unfixed everywhere. So clearly, that kind of dependency analysis needs to be happening.
Yes, and Sneak has a really good database. There are some vulnerabilities that they found just checking GitHub issue or PR that have no CVE, but they are, these vulnerabilities exist. Exactly. So having access to Sneak database is really great for scanning third-party dependencies. And I have understood the Mike argument. I don't know if we want to consider. I don't think that we want to consider new vulnerability, for example, vulnerable dependencies in a big project. But at the same time, if a project start to use for any reason a vulnerable packages, we want to know this and notify this. So scan also the third-party packages can be important. Maybe not in this tool or not at this moment, but in the future is of course important.
And certainly, like, as so for Omega, we are kind of bound by, so if we have 3 to, I don't know, somewhere between 3 and 30 million projects that we're going to scan, at the tip of the what we're going to see, we'll say critical vulnerability found in X, and someone will look at it and they'll say, yeah, that looks right, and they'll get it reported and be able to like bunch up and say, oh, by the way, you're also using an out of date or vulnerable dependency here, and kind of want to provide as much value while we have the maintainer's attention in reporting.
You are right.
So
there is the risk that the output is too noisy for the maintainers also, and when the alerts or the report are too noisy, usually maintainers or developers don't want to read them, and we need to avoid a similar scenario, of course.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, I think what we want in many cases is here's a pull request that fixes it. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
And they push the button.
Yep. Cool. So that's Alpha Omega. There's a lot more to come. I'm hoping that we're up and running in January. But as part of this, Matt, to your point, I think being able to leverage commercial data sources or partner data, whatever you want to call them, like Snyk, I think is enormous advantage. So yes, 100%. Cool. I don't see Amir on the call, so I don't have an update. Oh, actually, Dylan, I don't know if you have an update on security reviews.
Nothing since last week. It was just
okay.
the automated patching. I don't recall if there was anything that we wanted to like amend to the kind of automated overview page, but I mean, its general structure was there. I don't know if there's. There's nothing really I have for that at this moment. But.
Can we get that set? It's not. Is it already set up so it's automatically updating when there's a change?
No, actually, it's just you have to run the Python script and then it'll auto generate. But yeah, so I guess that.
Can we make that? I mean, there's no point in updating when there's no change, but when there's a change, I'd like it to just.
Sounds good. Okay.
A little cron job would do the trick, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's super simple. We'll do that. I'll make sure I get that done for our next meeting.
Cool.
Awesome. Thank you.
Luigi, do you want to talk about security YAML?
Yes, I mean, as David wrote 2 weeks ago, now we need to be sure about the design of a YAML file. And I have prepared this board. Please, it is public. There is just a password, but it is public. You don't need to create an account. Add comment ticket what you prefer. I'm working on 3 different designs, and then we can choose the design that we prefer. The password is this one. The point is that it's not clear if the YAML is an output file, an input file, or both, because it can be used also as input and output. My suggestion, but David, please correct me if I'm wrong, is that we want to have a human readable file, and but at the same time, we want to create a tool to create in an automatic way this YAML file. And for David, originally the file should be read by the open scorecard, for example. For me, the file should contain also the open scorecard result, because we can automate the scorecard result and the other tool result. But it can be read by the metric dashboard that we have. So the metric dashboard don't need to scan every repo, but the metric dashboard can check if the YAML is present or not and use it. So from my perspective, but please correct me or add ticket in the dashboard. From my perspective, the promise mode, so where the YAML is output file for the maintainer. So they have a tool to create it, they launch it, this tool launch the scorecard and the CII badge and similar, and create a YAML output where the maintainers can add the missing information, but they need to justify them. And then the metrics dashboard can, in this way, check if a particular repo contains the YAML file, and copy the information without launch every time the scanner and the tool. In this way, we can, if the YAML file became a standard, the dashboard can fill more project and have a better database. At the same time, the maintainers need just to launch a tool that we need to provide, of course, where there is the scorecard output, the CI output, and maybe also other tool. I mean, according to the tool that we want to add, because, for example, there are a lot of scanner like Sneak, like npm audit and similar that can have that can give automatic information that are really helpful for the maintainer. And
okay, I'm very confused by the boxes here. Like the maintainer should justify the unverified assertions is both as an input and an output. I don't understand why the boxes are where they are. They seem to be copied all over.
Oh, sorry. Okay, probably I need to add the legend or something similar. The point is that if the file is both an input and output, is an input for the metric scorecard especially, and it is an output from the maintainers. So this means that the maintainers launch the tool to create the YAML. The tool launch scorecard, the other automatic tool. So we have a YAML that contains some information generated by the automatic tool, but maybe the scorecard cannot obtain some information, like if there are some CI tests, because every CI test is different. So
right,
to avoid,
and that was the original argument for this OpenSSF security YAML, was that was intended as an input to tools.
But scorecard is a tool that can create an output that we can add in the YAML file.
Well, no. Scorecard generates an output. It is not OSSF security. It could be, I suppose. But
exactly.
that was never the original intent. And I guess the issue here is there a reason to have a merged output of all these different things?
I think that's the main reason why I have thought about this, is that if we want to maintain and improve the OpenSSF metric dashboard, metric website, especially with more projects, probably we cannot scan the entire GitHub or GitLab. So if the project already have a YAML file that contain the scorecard results and contain the CI information and so, we can just read the YAML file and add the information to the metric dashboard.
Okay, I don't think that's true. I mean, they're already scanning hundreds of thousands. I don't think they have know of any problem with scaling to millions. I mean, they just run it a bunch of times.
If we have no problem to scale the metric dashboard to scan every project, we can of course drop this and move to your idea. Because if you say that there is no reason, I agree.
Yeah, the bigger problem is, my experience is, getting CPU cycles is a whole lot easier than getting people to do things. The hardest thing to do is getting someone to do something.
I think there's probably another reason is because the scorecard is calculated. It is only as current as its last run, while the OSSF security YAML file, because the only way to update that is through individual pull requests and merges, that will be significantly slower. So it will always be out of date, I guess, relative to this scorecard. While if you only use it as an input up here, then it seems like it would complement scorecard and other data sources. Dylan, you have your hand up.
Yeah. I just had a quick thought on this. I'm after hearing like a lot of the ideas tossed around, I'm having trouble wondering why. I think it's almost possible to achieve a lot of what all of you guys are saying by, in my mind, I think that it would be really cool if we just started this tool. I mean, you have to, either way, to kind of do what Luigi's talking about, you have to do both components of it. So like, why not, like, why wouldn't we just kind of maybe initially start this tool or this security.yaml as an input and like, you know, something that users can, you know, install some whatever extension that where they can, or just create a YAML file and like fill out all these self-filled kind of things. And then the metrics dashboard, it can stay the way it is and kind of collect its data sources from Scorecard and everywhere. But just like as a last resort for like, you know, the stuff that it can't find, it can look at security.yaml for like those, you know, final kind of manual updates from the maintainer. And then after all of that, like that could be the whole input side of it, right? And then after all of that, what the YAML can do is, you know, if there's stuff like there could just be like a feature in that YAML where you know, it can auto populate or auto fill a lot of fields from Scorecard, like if it, you know, if it picks up on that. And that doesn't kind of disrupt the workflow of anything else in my mind. So I just think that it's possible to kind of just achieve this as an input and then have that output feature be like a convenience auto-populating kind of thing that can be included in the YAML file. Because I do think it's pretty cool to have like directly in someone's GitHub and someone's repository. I think that there's a lot of traffic already there where people actually visit the main GitHub page. And if they just see this YAML file with a whole bunch of fields populated and, you know, the more information, the more data, the better. I think that would be a cool like next feature to add on to get a lot more data out there and in people's eyes in the general open source world. I don't know. That's just my thoughts on it.
Yeah, it was, as was noted, originally it was only input. That what happened is last week, it was suddenly realized in the direction of discussions that at least one, and I think several people, when it's a challenge of writing, there was a fundamental misunderstanding of, was this an input to the tools or an output from the tools? The folks who started assumed that this was an input to the tools, but several folks who read the doc said, oh, this is an output from the tools. And the comments and discussions made no sense until it was finally realized just, you know, last meeting that, oh, we're talking past each other.
Right. Yeah, I
so,
mean, I think
so right now we're having that discussion of,
no,
oh wait,
yeah.
we had fundamental disagreements.
Yeah.
I'm much more of a fan of the tool input, because if you're going to have as a tool output, that means you have to get agreement from the tool makers or have a converter. If you're doing a converter, what's the advantage of a common format? Not sure I see it. If we do want to have it as a tool output and as a tool input, may I suggest that those be two separate files? Because as someone who has tried to do the round tripping, I've done round tripping. It's totally possible. It is also a tremendous amount of code for no gain. You basically are resigning yourself to data circularities, and that is not a good place to be. You could have a single spec and define one as, you know, OSS security YAML and OSF security merged or something, but, you know, but don't make it both. You know, you can make the spec, but don't make the file both the output and the input. You're just setting yourself up for pain.
I agree. Yeah, I think the input is. I think that would be the cooler initial kind of big problem to just solve at first. It's just my opinion. I know everyone has their own opinion. I think the input, because it solves that problem of like everyone complaining like, oh, hey, you know, your metrics, the metrics dashboard or this scorecard or this tool doesn't really, you know, detect everything, and that doesn't really look fair to us. I think that gives maintainers a fair chance to do that, and that seemed like the problem we're trying to solve. I think the output feature is like, I think that would be like a cool secondary goal after accomplishing this, to see like, oh, is there additional data we could populate on GitHub? And I don't see any reason that couldn't be like appended to the end of it or anything, and just kind of have everyone win here, I guess, so to speak. But yeah, no, I totally agree with you, David. Yeah, I just want to toss my thoughts out there.
So for the first iteration, we consider the YAML file like just an input file. So an input for tools. So the maintainers create this YAML file. We can create a wizard tool, so we can help the maintainers to create the YAML file. And then the scorecard can read this file to obtain some information that maybe can obtain another way, or there are false positive. And also this means that if the scorecard can read this, also the metric dashboard can read this, the YAML file. So it is an input file also for the metric dashboard indirectly.
And the CI best practices badge, which is with the plan
yes,
to rename that, can also look at that file, and if it's formatted in a way that we can, I'll say, for example, if we can format it so that all the criteria of names, and if each of them has a met, unmet statement and a justification text for each of them. I mean, I can easily write that and use that as low priority. The way the CI best practices badge works is it has some automation, and some sources of data are considered more authoritative or more likely to be true than others. But considering this as a low value of truth, in the sense that if we can detect, for example, there are no licensed files, no copying files, I don't care if you say you have a license. As a trivial example, you still don't have it. So, but that's okay. We could still. I don't know how many people would do that, because it's typically easier to use a web form than to enter data into a YAML file. But I could see maybe somebody in the JavaScript world who has lots and lots of tiny modules that might give them a hand. Hey, before you add yourself, copy paste. Copy paste these things that are true already, and then when you start your badge, it'll get a leg up. Something like that.
Okay, so input file, human readable. It is, but it is also an input file for tools. And okay, I can continue the document. I think that the template that you have already created is very good. So I think that now we need to formalize this first implementation. I want to specify this fact. So we have decided that the first implementation is an input file for tools generated or created by the maintainers with the help of an automated tool, maybe. And that is perfect. Okay.
Yeah. Now there's an interesting thing. Is it a tool output or tool input? I think what I would say is it's something you check into your repository, typically hand edited. But I mean, we can't prevent people from using tools. But the goal is primarily for this data file to be an input to analysis tools. Maybe I should have said it that way.
No, I totally. I have understood. Totally agree, and I think it is a good first implementation. Other questions?
Yeah, we can always go back, and if you want it as an output, I would just you can have the same spec, but have it a different file, please.
Okay, don't worry. Yes, don't worry. But we can start with this implementation. This is important at the moment. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Thank you.
Cool. Awesome. The one other topic that I wanted to discuss today was basically how to not report security vulnerabilities. I don't know if well, I don't know how big of a problem this is, but in talking with some security maintainers for a very large, well-known project, they expressed a lot of angst at their role in triaging bug reports sent in by the public. And basically, it came down to a lot of the security researchers that they interact with are, in their words, abusive and threatening, very personal, like completely inappropriate, like bonkers stuff. And I think I'm not aware, in my head, I can't think of reading a good article or anything like that that kind of called this to light.
Oh yes, there's been a whole bunch of them actually.
Okay.
Dr. Krob, he can
Perfect.
he can well, enlighten is probably the wrong term. He can point you to this is actually frankly, the problem is way less in the open source world, my opinion, than on commercial space, where we basically have a lot of researchers who've decided that extortion is the best way to live life.
Yep. Totally.
You know, for the open source ones, they can basically say, "Oh, you're going to tell the world about a vulnerability. Excellent. We'll lose half our revenue. Oh, we don't have any revenue."
Yeah, and it's so and I think perhaps in the middle are kind of non-commercial organizations where these are people that either are volunteers or they take kind of a nominal salary or things like this, where it's not, you know, to be clear, it's not reporting a vulnerability in exchange to Microsoft, but yet it's still not reporting it in a hobbyist project either. So okay, I'll reach out to Krob. Either way, the fact that this is still a problem means that perhaps there's more that can be done.
Yes.
So without seeing previous art in the area, I don't know like if this still makes sense, but you know, I think it would be like what I would want to read is, you know, hey, we talked to a bunch of maintainers, large and small, maybe even some commercial. We talked to some security researchers to kind of understand this problem, and this is the reality of what it is. This is why it's a problem. Here's what works well.
Right.
And basically, like, hey, security researchers, like, don't be a jerk. Like, the people on the other end of the end of this are humans too, that have families and are busy and are trying their best, you know, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, the how to keep people from being jerks is hard.
Yep.
So I think really at the end, your punchline, work with the vulnerability disclosures group. Actually, I want to bump that up because I think that's the key. Because we've got another group who just finished writing up, the vulnerability disclosures working group just finished writing up guidelines on how to do coordinated disclosures, and primarily from the point of view of open source projects, you know, how to prep for this. So here's what I would suggestion. Ask vulnerability disclosures working group to write some sort of "don't be a jerk" article, paper aimed at researchers.
So, you know, one thing where maybe we could help on the academic side as you know, sort of academic researchers is it might be possible to like put a student on this survey idea, do something more broadly to say like, you know, can we have a student go around, talk to a bunch of projects, figure out the prevalence of this, figure out, you know, how they would potentially, you know, react to this don't be a jerk kind of thing. This might be something, if people were interested, we could get a student on. I'm sure sort of having OpenSSF behind us to say like, hey, you know, talk to us. We sort of have the community's best interests at heart here, and we're sort of working with the OpenSSF. Might be a really good way to see this thing through and get like, you know, I don't want to say big data, but more numbers on it.
Yeah, I'm going to say this type of situation where you say, I don't know if this is a problem, but I want more insight. I think it's well suited for what Drew and I do. And, you know, of course, as academic, we are sneaky people. We have a broader agenda, which is to write a paper about a problem. But as long as there is no issues about that, then we are, you know, I think this sounds very interesting, actually.
Okay.
No, I don't think there's any. The only issue is we would be sad if you didn't write a paper.
Yeah, I was going to say, you probably want to point at that paper, right?
We want something out of this, right? So, yeah.
That's right. The only thing about that paper is we want that paper, no matter where you publish, we want to be able to read it.
So is that because in interactions with commercial companies, that's kind of the norm for how that works in terms of cultural stuff, you know?
I think it's a problem regardless. I think historically there were reasons why I think this came about, and it was probably because of commercial vendors ignoring vulnerability reports. So yeah. But
I think unfortunately there's several confluences of social situations. You've got a lot of commercial companies who have ignored vulnerability reports or have been hostile to. You frankly have a counterculture in a lot of these areas. You know, if you start listening to the black hats and DEF CONs and so on, you know, you've got a culture of, oh, look how clever I am, and the point is to be clever, not really to help people.
Mm.
You know, the idea is to show how cool and smart you are, and the idea of oh, this hurts people is not a construct that seems relevant in some of these social spheres. I'm trying to be kind to this because, in fact, I respect the intelligence of these folks greatly. I don't respect how they treat other people.
And I think that separating out this is a critical vulnerability. Like even if you come to it in a principled way of like, I found this, someone with bad intentions could find this, and if you don't fix it soon, then I feel that I have an obligation to let everybody know that using your thing is dangerous. I think you could have a principled discussion why that's okay. But saying that
actually,
are a jerk and I'm going to find where you live, that's off the table.
Right. I mean, I actually think it's entirely appropriate to say, I will give you a window of time to work on this in private, and after that work in public, because otherwise a lot of organizations will never fix it, and that's a bad thing for society. But yeah, if you don't fix it, I'll report it publicly is fine and normal. It's that other stuff, or you know, I basically the threatening moving towards extortion, which is absolutely not okay.
Right. So here's a vulnerability. You give me X $1,000. Otherwise, I report it next week.
And next week is awful extreme.
I know. Okay. So, would anyone like to kind of own this?
I think Drew and I don't know, Drew, I don't want to speak for you, but we could be interested.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think there's two parts of this, and the one that I would be most interested in is like there's a lot of folklore about this happening, extortion, and sort of your little mean add-ons to the regular process. And I think we'd really be interested in formalizing that and like kind of getting into it. And then the other side of it, and I don't know if you were thinking about this part, Lorenzo, was also kind of like the best practices part. That's probably more of a discussion, right? That's not so much something.
Yeah, that seems less research and more a discussion to be had. But you know, the part about understanding trends and pinpointing them, I think that definitely happy to own that part.
And bringing the extent of the problem to light, right? I think that's a big part of what we need to do in order to get this kind of thing respected.
Awesome. That sounds terrific. So I'll leave it in your hands. Let me know if you need connections or any support.
Well, the only thing seems that David mentioned there are some people that already knows a lot about this space. I don't think I have access or knowledge of those people, Mike. So I don't. If you can just act as introduction.
Absolutely. Are you guys on the Slack channel or on the in the OpenSSF Slack?
I am, but I don't think I've subscribed to all the relevant channels. Is there one in particular you're?
So there's the vulnerability disclosures channel. Do I copy link maybe? I'll do that.
Okay. Yeah, so I think basically, Michael, we've already got enough on our plate. Alpha Mega is going to keep us busy. The vulnerabilities working group, disclosures working group is exactly the right people. And I think that right now officially they're supposed to be working on a paper, but I'm not sure how much really action there is on that. The what they actually did, the guidelines, is a subset, and I'm not sure how many people are excited to try to write the big thing. So a focused on this, and I'm not so sure that we need the survey to start writing the paper. But if we, frankly, even if we could just have anecdotes of examples of things not to do, that would be a great start. And then if somebody does a real survey, does the research, finds out the examples, and then comes back, we could then refine that don't be a jerk paper with the deeper insights from the additional research. So I think we can hit at it a little bit now as a quick draft with anecdotes, do research, and then have a better version updated as a version 2. Thoughts?
Yeah, I'd argue that even having something preliminary to discuss during the survey to say, like, would this work for you? How much do you think that this has already been sort of adhered to ad hoc? Like, that might make the survey more compelling. And, maybe use data for good data for a version 2.0 of the best practices.
Okay. So Michael, do you mind sending this off to the vulnerability working group, particularly Probe?
I will ping them right now on Slack and just let them know that Drew and Lorenzo are gonna reach out and take it from there.
Well, I think it's more than that. I think we're asking them to do something. We want them to write a paper.
Yeah.
You might want to do it also with the mailing list. Remember the Slack goes away after 10,000 messages across, so it doesn't stick around. Anything you want to stick around, Slack's not such a great thing.
Didn't we have this solved in like 1982?
We did. It's called mailing lists.
Yeah. Okay.
Mailing list and IRC.
Yes, we also had IRC. We still have IRC. I still encounter folks using IRC, so it's not dead.
No. Cool. Any other topics for today? I had one other quick one, which is Lorenzo. I know we're chatting about typo squatting and things like that. We made some updates. We actually had some internal interest on the typo squatting stuff that we're doing. If it's relevant, we moved out the typo squatting stuff to a separate library. I think we expanded the mutators. So things, it should be finding better stuff. Now we're going to continue. We have another team that internally that's using this as part of a service. So they've got a couple engineers that are going to contribute. So we'll probably see more updates to this over the next couple months.
Okay, and that's very interesting. And so I'm assuming this is on GitHub, so it's open source, right?
Yes, it's all open source. I think it's on NuGet as well. Here we go. Find squats. Yeah, so this is the library. You should just be able to, kind of plug in somehow, or there's a CLI as well, so you can do either one.
Okay, so what I'm going to say is that this sounds very interesting. We do have a project which is looking at building sort of more complex model of typo squatting. So down the road, we may have some patches or some additional, whatever you call mutators or plugin for this tool.
Yep.
And once we have something interesting, I'll make sure to reach out.
Cool. There. If there's nothing else, thank you everybody for your time. I appreciate it. And for those of you in the US, happy Thanksgiving tomorrow. For everybody else, happy Thursday.
Thank you,
everybody.
Thank you all. Bye.
Awesome.
See you soon.